So on April 1st this year, I witnessed something different on the internet that had been different for the past, I don't know, 5 years that the internet has done April Fools. And it's now 20 days later, and I still can't stop thinking about this. I couldn't tell if it was a joke or not. So, it doesn't actually matter. This day, 1st of April. April Fools. This year, this day, it's ranged from radio to TV to internet. People always make a joke out of something on this day. And you know what? It's actually really good. I'm gonna put over here some of the most infamous jokes that have happened on the 1st of April on the internet specifically. So let's start off in the year 2000, where Google created this thing called Mental Plex. And it said that it used special technology to conduct web searches by reading your mind. So in 2011, Kodak recommends relationship. And this was 2011. Now it seems like, oh, okay, that's obvious. We can do that with AI. But effectively, you could upload any photo and they would remove your ex or anyone from them. Then in 2007, there was the dead fairy hoax, where England sculptor Dan Baines became a viral sensation after posting photos of what he claimed to be a mummified remains of a dead fairy on his website. And he supposedly went to archaeologists and forensic experts who confirmed its authenticity. 2013, Netflix, the streaming service, had some fun with its subscribers by adding several amusing categories to its sites, including movies featuring an epic Nicolas Cage meltdown, surreal ballets based on a William Shatner album, reality TV about people with no concept of reality. Again, Google in 2012, they basically turned the mapping tool into an 8-bit version. Then the time that YouTube rickrolled the world in 2008, The Guardian in 2009 became a Twitter-only publication. Then 2009, Warner Brothers buys the Pirate Bay. Burger King introduced a left-handed Whopper burger. All of these pranks were funny and people really laughed. However, this year, it's different because of AI and short-form video. These things already erode our trust. So and this is from my personal experience, found it really difficult to navigate the internet on April Fool's Day today. I didn't know what was real or what was fake. Okay, so the Reddit post that I have here, this one was posted 4 years ago. So this was just before ChatGPT was released to the world, before AI became this mainstream thing. And this person wrote this post in a funny way because they knew coming onto the internet on April Fool's Day, you always get some weird stuff going on. And these jokes would be very confusing to people that have never entered the sphere of the universe, of the internet. But in that, it implies that it goes back to normal on April 2nd. And for the rest of the year, you existed on the internet with this notion of trust. And trust is a broad thing, but there's two types of trust that I would like to talk about here. It's first of all, trusting the person that is sharing the information, and trusting that there is actually a person there. And in the past, April Fools, you could trick people. You could break their trust for a day. You could say something that was completely not true, and people would laugh at it. And it took you a few seconds, but every single time, okay, barring, like, depends on what the joke is, but every single time you're like, oh, okay, that's April Fool's, that's not actually real. And that's because April Fool's had this time frame associated with it. It was the 1st of April. But an even more important thing was the people behind making the jokes, or the brands behind making the jokes, you trusted them. And when you used to know these two things, you could relax and enjoy the joke. This year, in 2026, I found myself scrolling through complete strangers. I don't think I ever even came across someone on my social media that day that I actually had met in real life. These were people that I didn't know anything about. And yes, there are some massive YouTubers that have some credibility or whatever, but there were some people on Instagram YouTube shorts where I don't even know this person. I'm never going to see this person in my life ever again, even online. And because I had no history of these people, and I couldn't tell if it was a joke, if it was AI, or it was real, and that made it really hard to actually be on the internet. I felt like my brain was working extra hard that day. And we all know that this notion of strangers on the internet, it started a while ago, even before the onset of AI confusing us and breaking the boundary of what is actually real and what's not real. And we've moved into this notion of short-term video, where it's not your friends sharing stuff on social media, it's random strangers that you are scrolling through. And that's the world that we live in now. And there's a lot of negative talk about it, how it's rotting our brains, killing our dopamine. And that's probably true. And it's all because the whole point of these short form videos is that the content escapes the person who made it. And the video goes viral because more people are sharing and liking and all this kind of stuff. And by the time it reaches you on your feed, the person that made it is irrelevant. And that sounds so bad. I'm so sorry for all those people that don't get the credit that they deserve for the effort they put in. But this is the world we're living in now. People have no idea who you are. They have no history. They know nothing about you. They just think your reel is funny or you've shared some really good information. And I've made a video about this, but you're left evaluating the content in itself. Does it look right? Does it sound right? Does it feel right? Is there some sort of truth in this? And in that, it's really difficult to do that. And because you don't innately trust the person sharing it. But again, that's where we are in the world. But now we add AI on top of this. It kind of made the content in itself unverifiable. And now, when you have two of those together, it makes it quite difficult to exist on the internet when you're like, is this real, is this not real? If you turn that off, it's almost an active switch to be like, you know what, I am going to watch the slop. It's fine. It's a little bit entertaining. I'm going to scroll through it. But if you're someone like me who's like, I'm going to resist the slop. I don't want to be caught with this kind of stuff. I'm better than that. And that is the narrative that's in my head. And I find it hard to keep thinking about, is this real? Is this not real? Do I trust this? Whatever. And it became a very demanding task. Okay, depends how late in the night it gets. Maybe I do like watching Love Island Fruit. So Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist, describes two systems in which the brain uses to process information. System 1, which is fast, automatic, and effortless. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and effortful. Vision kind of falls into system 1 thinking. It's fast and reactive. You don't actively choose to see something, you just register it. And for most of human history, that's kind of just been how we operated because that's what we saw. That's just how we existed. We didn't really think further than that. And images required the presence of the thing being perceived or depicted when you are let's just say that you're sober and there's no hallucinations, all of this kind of stuff. And a photo, it meant something happened. A video meant something was there. And this, even though they were stored in time, it still meant their persistence was there. AI, it's changed this whole calibration of our thinking now. Now, with every image, there's the question is this real? And that question of is this real? Requires system 2 thinking, deliberate, and it costs effort. And if you're being asked to do that with every single image on your feed, it gets tiring. And this researchers have coined this as cognitive exhaustion, because you're not just tired of the content that exists there, you're also tired of not being able to trust your own perception of it. Okay, so June 2025. 2025 is the important part here. There was footage all over that said the US bombed Iranian nuclear sites. And there were footage of explosions and just missiles and fire and war stuff. And Polyfact, like a fact-checking company, I guess, checked this. And much of this was all AI generated. And some of the footage was from old conflicts. Even in the war that's happening today, there were people using footage of video games to show what was actually going on. And it all looked so real that people were sharing it and saying that this is what's going on. And even X, or Twitter's own chatbot Grok, was asked to fact check some videos and told the users that the fakes were actually real. I don't know if that's a cycle we should be using to fact check things, but people are doing it. And now, a cybersecurity company called Malwarebytes. If you've worked for a big company, they've probably put this on your computer. They announced in this year, April 2026, that they've stopped doing April Fool's campaigns. And their reason was that scammers now use AI to clone legitimate company websites specifically on April 1st. And knowing that people lower their guard for jokes, they say, put a well-executed April Fool's joke next to a modern phishing attempt. And many of us will actually have to look twice. And the company stopped making these jokes because they said the jokes look like crimes. And that's just on the crime end of it. And that shower thought post that I described earlier. It's funny because the internet was a legible place. Yes, there wasn't always truth on it, but it wasn't, you didn't have to question everything because sometimes you just trusted your friends and you trusted brands. And on April Fool's Day, things were shaken up, things were shifted. Because, maybe your friend decided to prank everyone and say that they're pregnant, but maybe they're not. And April Fools will finish and they'll be like, pranked. But you would potentially know, no, she's joking. But every other day, your friend wouldn't randomly post that. They would post, to a degree, truthful things online. And it was just a known fact on April Fools that this kind of happens on the internet. There was just this underlying rules, and people chose to play along or they chose not to. It's just a thing, And a UNESCO paper on the notion of deep fakes. Now, deep fakes, I don't know if you know, are effectively people mimicking with AI exactly what I look like and pretending that I said things that I maybe didn't. And UNESCO was talking about deep fakes as a crisis in themselves. And it almost extends to this notion of a crisis of your capacity to orientate yourself in reality. And I know that sounds crazy, but it is. And there's a concept that researchers call the liar's dividend. Oh, and once deepfakes are known to be possible and be very good at imitating a particular person, real evidence can be dismissed as fake. Real evidence, real videos, real footage, real things are dismissed by people as being no, that's definitely AI. When it's in fact not. Because the problem that we're living in is technology doesn't just produce fake things. It also contaminates the real ones. And there's this notion of, and it's this thought that we're living in here, which I think what made it really hard for me is that mental capacity that I had to put in when I suspect a post is AI and actually isn't. And it's just the existence that AI can, it's just the fact that AI exists in the world and on social media that makes everything else difficult. It's almost like having, how do I put it, a spy in the room. And someone had mentioned this on Reddit, and I was like, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because the spy doesn't have to do anything. Its presence is enough. And that's kind of what April Fools felt like this year on the internet. But now it felt like I couldn't find the edge of the joke. Was it a joke? Was it not a joke? Is it real? I'm not sure. And I think that's what I struggled with this year. I don't know, maybe it was just me. But it would be interesting to see if anybody else also struggled with that. So, yeah, I think it was difficult for me to find the humor in the campaigns that were done this year. And there's a part that I didn't speak about, and that is also that AI, all the software that AI can do now with vibe coding, means that some brands and companies were saying, this is what we're doing on April 1st. We're creating this we're diverting into a new business, whatever. And it actually could be legitimate that they do that. With the help of these AI tools, they might be able to get there. And that in itself was also part of me being like, oh, maybe they are doing it. That's great. Wait, is this April Fool's? What's going on? How do we, what? And another layer to that made it very difficult to exist on the internet on April Fool's. And maybe it's me just getting old and I didn't find the humor in a lot of the things that I saw. But I don't know. I feel like it's just like not the right time to make the joke kind of thing. We're living already in a world, maybe on the onset of the war that's currently happening and all this other stuff. We don't really know what's going to go on, that maybe I'm a little bit more like suspicious of so many things on the internet that, yeah, it's already difficult. I don't know. This is, I think, just a diary entry of me that I felt like it's been 20 days since April Fool's and I still can't get that out of my head. So I thought I'd put it on my vlog. Anyway, I will check you guys tomorrow.